Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone it is in the world you're joining us. Welcome into Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here on this Friday morning here in the United States. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. And as we're joining you, we're just under 30 minutes away from SpaceX launching its latest Falcon 9 rocket, getting ready to send another batch of 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. Departure time is what you see there at the bottom of your screen, 7:06 a.m. Pacific, 10:06 a.m. Eastern, 14:06 UTC for our friends joining around the world. At this point in the count, SpaceX is currently fueling its Falcon 9 rocket, preparing for the launch in less than half an hour. As we're getting rolling here, I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who's running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Given that this is a West Coast venture, our photography team does have this mission off, but now's a good time to make sure that you're following the fellas on X. You can find them at their handles here on the screen. John Pisani is at John Pisani Photo, Michael Kane at MD Kane Jr., and Adam Bernstein at A Byrne NYC. Also, be sure to follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. You can find us on Blue Sky Threads and Facebook as well if you're not on X. Taking a look at our live chat this morning, I want to thank the more than 1,300 of you who are watching along with us at the beginning of our broadcast. Certainly appreciate it, especially for those of you on the West Coast who are getting up early for this sunrise Falcon flight. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage today. Also want to thank our mods in the live chat who are helping us out this morning. Thanks to Rick Donner and I believe I saw Jeff Hansen earlier and Mark Otto. Appreciate all of you. You can make the mods job that much easier just by following the rules of the live chat. We ask that you type your message in English so that our mods can respond as appropriate. Also, we ask that you hold off from delving into overt politics or religion, to not type in all caps. And most importantly, we ask that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated, and we'll all get along swimmingly. This and every other launch opportunity are made possible in no small part thanks to the ongoing support of our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube. So big thanks to folks like Kitty Chronister, JJ Jones, Distributor 69, Sherry, Jim Fowley, and many, many others. Space Coast Rocket Launches, good morning to you. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. For those outside of the United States who may not be paying super close attention to what's going on in our neck of the woods, of course, we are currently in a government shutdown, but that is not stopping the rockets from flying here at the Cape. Of course, we've gone through quite a bit of turbulence out in the tropics with two named storms that have come through and are now on the way out. So hopefully we'll be in a good position for a launch coming up on Monday. But it is a rare spell where we've had not just one, not two, but three now back-to-back Vandenberg launches uninterrupted by a mission from here in Florida. As far as the chronology for SpaceX, that has actually never happened. There have been a couple of back-to-back Vandenberg launches without a Cape mission in the middle. If you've had a chance to read our launch preview story on the website, spaceflightnow.com, you can see what those missions were. That happened earlier this year and last year, but this is the first three-peat for the West Coast without a Cape launch. That's due partly likely from the weather, but also because the launch cadence out at Vandenberg is ramping up, both from a functional side as well as from a permission side. Vandenberg has been granted the ability to launch up to 70 times for the SpaceX Falcon fleet. They're currently in the process of getting permission to launch up to 100 times from both Space Launch Complex 4 East, as well as the future pad that SpaceX is looking to bring into the fold, Slick 6, which would include the ability to launch Falcon Heavy rockets as well, up to 5 of those per year. Taking a look at the weather, though, here at Vandenberg, it's not going to be a showstopper for this mission, but also may not be the prettiest ascent that we've seen. I take a look at this most recent weather loop from the Goes West satellite. You can see a little bit of fog kind of hanging around the area of Vandenberg, so we'll see how much of the rocket we can actually see once the pad cameras are available to us in the final 5 minutes of the count. We're currently T-minus 22 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting to the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. Stepping for a moment into the countdown timeline, let's get you all caught up on the milestones that are now behind us and what is still ahead for SpaceX before they're able to launch their Falcon 9. T-minus 38 minutes is when the SpaceX launch director made the call that they were go for the start of prop load, which began at the T-minus 35-minute mark with the loading of liquid oxygen aboard the rocket's booster and RP-1, which is a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. T-minus 30 minutes is when SpaceX will start to load a cryogenic helium on board the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage. Same will be true on the second stage a few minutes after that, at which point the Falcon 9, that helium, I should say, is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. When you go so long without a launch, you start to lose the rhythm of these things. T-minus 23 minutes is when the second stage RP-1 loading wraps up. Then at T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is when the strong back chill down process gets underway. Had we eyes on the rocket, right at about 4 seconds from now, we'd start to see the so-called big vent. A good visual indication that things are moving along on time and as expected. This roughly 4-minute chill down process sets the stage for the loading of liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage at the 16-minute mark. Moving right along, T-minus 7 minutes is when the engine chill sequence begins. SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes before flight, the first stage kerosene tank is full. At T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strongback. First, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strongback. Here at Vandenberg, that reclines about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes before flight, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. About a minute after that, same is true on the second stage. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. At the same time, the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will then give their call that they are go for launch, assuming that they are at that point. T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a teaser liftoff. Once again, coming up here at the time you see on your screen, 7:06 a.m. Pacific, 10:06 a.m. Eastern, 14:06 UTC for those around the world. Just about 18.5 minutes from now. Just under 17.5 minutes to go before the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket as scheduled. Roughly a minute left on the big vent as well. This mission, Starlink 11-39, is not going to create any movement for our list of the Falcon 9 frequent flyers. That's because the booster being used today is a fairly recent addition to the SpaceX fleet. It's got the tail number of B1097, and it'll be flying for just its second time on today's mission. Here's a look at where the frequent flyer list currently stands. Got a two-way tie now for second place between B1063 and B1071. The booster flying today has its previous mission as Starlink 17-8. Flew exactly 1 month ago today on September 3rd. Just under 16 minutes before flight now. At this point in the count, SpaceX is loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's second stage. Time now, T minus 13 minutes, 39 seconds and counting. I want to thank one of our channel members and moderators, Jeff Hansen, for a $10 super chat. Thank you, Jeff, who says, go Vandy, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink, Godspeed, 1097. Let's go ahead and talk about where this Falcon 9 rocket's going to be flying once it leaves the pad. Talking a little trajectory here. Falcon 9 rocket supporting the Starlink 11-39 mission will, of course, be lifting off from Space Launch Complex 4 East, or Slick 4E, there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. After its initial ascent, it will fly in a southeasterly trajectory along the coast of California and Mexico. B-1097 will follow the orange arc you see there on your screen and target a touchdown on the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You, positioned in the Pacific Ocean. That'll happen about 8.5 minutes into the flight. SpaceX, of course, is interested in retrieving not only its boosters, but also the fairing halves, which will be brought aboard one of these recovery vessels, brought back through the port of Long Beach and then off to Vandenberg, where they will be refurbished and turned around for future flights. T-minus 12 minutes and counting. Also want to welcome in new channel member Calvin Chase, who joined us this morning with membership at the pad leader level and then was kind enough to upgrade their membership to the mission specialist level. Really appreciate that, Calvin. Thank you so much for your support. For any of the folks in our audience who've been down in Australia for the International Astronautical Congress, I hope you've all had a wonderful conference this week. Quite a lot of folks down there and some interesting panels, which fortunately have been live streamed. So it's been good to catch up on some of that remotely. Of course, it's a busy time for SpaceX here in the States, in addition to the mission that we've got coming up here in just about 10.5 minutes. As I mentioned earlier, the broadcast on Monday, they're looking for their first launch from Florida in a good bit. The flight of another Starlink mission. This is the Starlink 10-59 flight, which will take a northeasterly trajectory upon departure from Space Launch Complex 40 just after midnight. That'll be followed as scheduled a couple days afterwards by the next batch of Amazon's Project Kuiper satellites. That'll be on the KF-03 mission, standing for Kuiper Falcon number 3, of course. Set to lift off the evening of October 8th. And that'll be followed the following Monday by a big mission for SpaceX, of course, the 11th flight of its Starship rocket, scheduled to be the final Starship mission of the year, as SpaceX will now fully turn its attention to the launch of its version 3 edition of Starship, both the booster and the upper stage, sometime next year on Flight 12. Indications are that SpaceX will perform at least one suborbital flight with version 3 of Starship before planning an orbital launch, potentially as early as Flight 13. Of course, 2026 represents a lot of big milestones for the Starship program. The next launch or the first launch of version 3 will be the debut, as planned, of Pad B down there at Starbase. 2026 is also when SpaceX intends to perform its propellant transfer demonstration, the ship-to-ship prop transfer that will be needed for deep space exploration. And where NASA is concerned, it is the one of the long poles in the tent, if you will, on the path to Artemis 3 and the landing of Starship as the human landing system on the surface of the moon. Of course, before it can support humans, Starship will need to perform an uncrewed landing demonstration and ascent from the lunar surface sometime before Artemis 3 is allowed to move forward with crew in the loop. SpaceX has also said 2026 is the year that they plan to bring the Starship Tower at the Kennedy Space Center online, which of course you can always head over to our 24/7 live stream, Launchpad Live, and check in on the progress for development with that Starship Tower at LC-39A at the Kennedy Space Center. Coming back to the mission of the day, though, we're just about 7 minutes away from the flight of Starlink 11-39. At this point, SpaceX should be flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the booster, helping to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. Let's talk a little bit about the payload on board this Falcon 9 rocket. 28 more Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites heading into low Earth orbit today. This is SpaceX's 89th launch featuring Starlink satellites so far this year. The optimized versions of these V2 mini satellites are considerably lighter than their predecessors. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. Built up in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle, these will be deployed at about 183 miles or 295 kilometers in altitude at a 53-degree inclination. 6 minutes out, the first stage RP-1 tank should be full at this point in the countdown. Should also be getting pad level views of the Falcon 9 rocket coming up here in about less than a minute.
Tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
Just under 5 minutes to go. Got our views of the Falcon 9 rocket now. Not too foggy right at the pad, which is good.
Strong back retract has started.
Quite a bit of clouds in the area, though, so folks who are in the vicinity of the pad or downrange, let us know if you're able to catch a glimpse of the Falcon 9 as it makes its climb uphill. Love to hear and see what you're able to capture. Be sure to tag us on social media at Spaceflight Now. T-minus 4 minutes, 1 second and counting. You can see the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings have opened up, and now the transporter erector is reclining away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Again, it will move back about 13 degrees away from the vehicle And this strong back does not move any further once it has fully reclined. T-minus 3 minutes and counting.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And a good call on LOX load. We should hear a similar call right about at the 2-minute mark regarding the second stage LOX tank.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that good call, the Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Should be seeing some additional venting momentarily, just at the bottom of your screen there.
Ground gas closeout.
Yes, the ground gas closeouts as SpaceX releases the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there at the pad. Coming up on the final minute of the count.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with that call, we're now just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to verify that they are, in fact, go for launch, coming up here in the next few seconds.
LD is go for launch.
And with that good call, we're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary, listen in with you for the final 30 seconds of the count, and be back with you on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10. 9, 8, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engines full power, and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressure is nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Max Q.
And a good beginning to this Falcon 9 flight here. So the rocket is passing through max Q. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, the greatest point of aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle.
I'm back chill.
That call referring to the upper stage engine, the Merlin vacuum engine, now being thermally conditioned ahead of the start of its first burn. SpaceX is coming up to a few events in fairly rapid succession. First will be the first stage main engine cutoff, otherwise referred to as MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. That'll be followed shortly thereafter by stage separation and then the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine.
Falcon 9 is on a nominal trajectory.
The payload fairings at the top of the rocket will be jettisoned just before the 3-minute mark. We're just about 5 seconds to MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Good calls, good visuals.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And those fairing halves, of course, will be recovered by one of SpaceX's recovery vessels and turned around for future flights. Now a little more than 4 minutes into the flight so far. Everything appears nominal with this Falcon 9 flight today. Good news there. In less than 2 minutes will be the next big mission milestone for SpaceX. That'll be the start of the 3-engine entry burn, where the booster on the left-hand side of your screen will begin to slow itself down quite a bit in preparation for the landing burn, which will take it down for the touchdown on the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. The booster has already begun to make its descent, as you can see with the telemetry data on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Those puffs that you're seeing occasionally, well, now looking up through the inner stage at the top of the booster right now. Those puffs that you were seeing and will likely see again before all is said and done, those are the cold gas thrusters, which help adjust the booster's positioning or attitude. Entry burn now less than 20 seconds away.
Stage 1 FTS has safed. Stage 1 entry burn startup.
This burn will last less than 30 seconds in total. A call on the FTS was in regard to the flight termination system, no longer needed at this point in the flight.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
Both vehicles remain on nominal trajectories.
And with the entry burn now behind them, SpaceX now looks towards the start of the landing burn. Set to begin just before the 8-minute mark in this mission. Still appears to be a good first burn on the upper stage engine as well.
Stage 2 FTS has safed. Stage 1 is transonic.
Just about 20 seconds now before the first stage should touch down the drone ship.
Stage 1 landing burn startup.
Stage 2 and terminal guidance.
Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And a good second landing for B-1097. Looks like a good cutoff of the upper stage engine. Nice view of the coastline down below. The upper stage will continue on in that coast phase until T plus 53 minutes and 34 seconds. There will be a brief 1-second burn of that upper stage engine. Then the Starlink satellites are set to deploy T plus 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 26 seconds post liftoff. Well, with a good liftoff and landing of B-1097, we're going to go ahead and pivot now to our mission stats as they currently stand. Do want to just quickly thank Virginia Pruitt, one of our channel members, for a $2 super chat. Thank you, Virginia, for your support today. As mentioned, that was the second flight of B-1097. SpaceX's 542nd Falcon 9 launch to date. This was their 125th of the year so far. Also their 165th within the last 365 days. This was SpaceX's 153rd orbital launch from Space Launch Complex 4 East and the 221st overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's where SpaceX stands year over year. Looking at some recovery stats now. That was the 155th successful landing on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. That marked SpaceX's 418th drone ship landing and the 514th booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 48th orbital launch from California. the 132nd from U.S. soil, the 144th from U.S. rocket company, and the 227th orbital launch around the world. There have been 5 orbital mishaps so far this year. Here is where the pie chart now currently stands. Certainly appreciate all of you for taking part of your Friday morning to be with us. As a reminder, our next scheduled launch is set to depart from Space Launch Complex 40 here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. That's coming up shortly after midnight on Monday morning. Assuming all goes well with that mission, then SpaceX will pivot to the flight of the next batch of Kuiper satellites coming up midweek next week. So I hope you all have a wonderful, restful, and enjoyable weekend. I want to thank our moderators in the live chat who've been helping us out today, to Mark Otto and Rick Donner, Jeff Hansen. Appreciate all of you. Also want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who's been running the technical operations of the broadcast. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. Certainly appreciate your time and attention, and we look forward to welcoming you back in here when next we're ready for our next live stream. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.